I spend altogether too much time thinking about time, how to make it more effective, what I should be doing with that time, and how to organize my tasks so that they get done in the least amount of time and I can work on things based on my energy and whatever else is going on in my day. And since becoming a parent, that has exponentially expanded. The time is so precious, and so I want to make the most of my time. I want to help you make the most of yours. I wrote a post all about it, and I thought rather than just reading words on a page, it can be helpful to see the tips in action. So I'm going to go through each one and show you how it actually works from scratch. Spoiler alert, this is going to be a recap of 11 calendar strategies and some bonus ADHD tips peppered in, which are listed here in front of you. So there's going to be start of day, task triage, how to use time blocking, color coding, building in buffer time, planning untouchable time, not overbooking yourself, scheduling breaks as though they're appointments, having an end of day wrap up time, reflecting and resetting weekly so that you can learn from the week that was, or the month that was, or the quarter that was, syncing multiple calendars if that's relevant to you, and using visual or auditory cues to help sort of transition between tasks or see at a glance what's what. And then there's some other tips that are specific to ADHD brains around short time blocks, using automation, using playful titles and emojis and reminders and things. Anyway, let's dive in. The first tip is having a start of the day task triage. This is a time when it could be half an hour, but maybe you only have 5 or 10 minutes. It's a time when you look at what's on your task list, but then maybe some other things have come through. Maybe you've got emails, or maybe you remembered in the shower there was some thing that you had forgotten to put into your task list. Whatever it is, it's about assessing the lay of the land, working out which of those tasks is the most essential or most urgent for the day, maybe picking 2 other urgent or important items, and then looking at the sort of laundry list of maintenance tasks, and depending on the size of each task, like figuring out what those building blocks are for the day. But if nothing else, you want to make sure your most urgent and important task gets done. Maybe if you can narrow that down to one thing, that makes everything else kind of flex around it as you need. Then you block those tasks into your calendar. So you look at what's already in your calendar, you figure out maybe I need to spend longer here, less here, but it's basically like having an appointment with yourself. So after your task triage time, maybe you've got a meeting, but maybe after that you've got an hour. It's about specifying what that hour is actually going to be for, and then matching up the due dates to the tasks after you've rearranged them in your task tracker. So when it comes to picking the tasks, that relies on having some sort of task management system, and maybe you use a notebook, or maybe you use your email, or maybe you use Notion or Monday or ClickUp or Todoist or something else entirely. But wherever you keep your tasks, or whatever set of tools you use to keep your tasks, this is about going in, and this is the dashboard that we use for Producing Paradise. We have a few different places that tasks live depending on whether they are writing tasks, so blog posts that we want to write or complete, or tasks that relate to the running of the project, so project management or admin tasks. And then we have social posting that we want to do. This is the video schedule. So there's a few different task types that we can pick from, but basically it's about going in, and for me, my most essential urgent task for today was making a YouTube video. Hello. And then writing a blog post. Well, the blog post is usually the one that goes with the video, so we'll see if I have time to write a blog post and record a video. But it's basically going in and then picking out, okay, any of these urgent and important tasks, and then I might find I've got a little bit more time, or some, aspirational bonus time at the end of the day. I might pick from our undated task list and block that in as like a bonus round if I get through everything else. But it doesn't matter if I don't get to them, as long as I've done my most urgent and important task first, which is this. So this one in action would be getting an event when you start work. Maybe you start at 9 a.m. Maybe you only want to spend 15 minutes on this. I would put in a description that actually reminds you what this is going to be about, so it pops up with the actual steps. And then we want it to repeat daily, or maybe you only work a 4-day week, so you want to have it repeat every day, every weekday except Wednesday. Maybe you don't work Wednesdays. And so now this gets saved, and that's in as a task triage at the start of each day. If I was actually doing this for today, I would put in this, where are we now? 2:45 till 4:15, record a YouTube video about calendar management. And that would be what I'm working on for this time block with myself. How very meta. Bonus tip is if you have a digital assistant that you use like Google Assistant or Siri, or you could use your calendar widget, you can get it to remind you of the key events first thing in the morning. Like you could do a Hey Google if you've got a Google Nest in your kitchen or one of those things. So I touched on this, but time blocking is the second tip. So that's blocking chunks of time for focused work, meetings and breaks. So today, for example, say I had a meeting, very important meeting from 9:30 till 10:30, and then maybe I knew that I wanted to have my lunch break from 12:30 till 1:30. It's about blocking out the day, not for the whole week ahead, but just very specifically for the day that you're on, to have a clear idea of what you want to achieve at each point in that day. Maybe you'll use it further ahead. So sometimes I like to do a 4-hour block of PP work, stands for Producing Paradise. We'll say this one, and then we do after lunch another hour and a half. And so it's time blocked in there as a broad brush stroke at the beginning of the week. And then when I get to it on Thursday, I'll go in and be more specific and intentional about what I want to get out of that block. Maybe chunk it up into half-hour blocks with goals for each one, which I describe here. If you have an ADHD brain, you might want to keep your time blocks quite short and varied, maybe using alarms or visual timers to transition between tasks. The shorter the time block, the more specific you can be about what it is you're going to achieve in that block. Color coding. So in this calendar, it's brand new, but perhaps I wanted to make all my lunch slots yellow and say I want this to be every weekday, but then I want a custom, don't need to have it on a Wednesday because that's a different kind of day. And then maybe I want a salad for lunch every day. And so then that blocks it in as a different color so I can differentiate it from the work time and the other calendar events. Maybe meetings, if you had someone else invited, you might change the color of those as well, just so that you can see which tasks are solo and which tasks are shared. My color coding in my personal calendar is purple for my personal events like appointments or things that are not work related, then green for Producing Paradise work, and then blue for AP photo. And so I use that as a way to just visually at a glance see what my calendar looks like, where my energy is going to be spent when I'm in work mode or personal mode. Building in buffer time. So when you're planning things in the calendar, it's about making sure they're not back to back, giving yourself that time to breathe and reset. So daily task triage goes for 15 minutes. Maybe this 15 minutes was to go get a glass of water, do a little stretch, prepare for this meeting. And then maybe after this meeting, I'd take 15 minutes before I dive into my next focus block. My blocks by default are 45 minutes instead of an hour, so they already have that 15-minute buffer built in. And this might be planning for the week ahead, content planning. So untouchable time is another good one. This is about having time blocks where you are not going to be contactable, or as much as possible. It's about focusing on things that are deep work. You might let colleagues or family know that you're actually unavailable for these time slots. Maybe you would take them at a different location. Maybe you would put your phone on airplane mode or do other things to avoid distractions. You might label it as deep work time with a little headphone. So say I know on Thursday I want this to be deep work, maybe I'll stick that in as my little headphone reminder. If you have a business account on Google Workspace, you can actually go in and edit the task and call it focus time. I think if you haven't invited anyone else to the meeting, it's one of the automatic options. But we are on a free account here, so we do not have that option. Tip number 6 is avoid overbooking yourself. So try to limit how many meetings or commitments you have in one day, or in each week. So you might have one day that you like to do all your meetings, and then maybe the day after could be more of a personal admin or deep work kind of a day. I do find it helpful to look at the week at a glance view. So using this week view rather than the 2-week view or the month view, I find the week view is enough to kind of do that scan and see, you know, okay, this is a busy day, maybe I'll need some more downtime on this next day, or this is a deep work day, so I could probably take some meetings on the Friday, and sort of using that to inform who you say yes to and what decisions you make about your time as you're planning out that week. You then also want to schedule your breaks like appointments. So maybe you don't need to do this if you can use your eyes to scan and see that there's, you know, relief space, white space in the calendar. But if you're not so great at that, maybe you do need to say, okay, hey, on this day, I'm going to finish at 5:30, and this is break before dinner. And maybe you'd give that a different color and accidentally move it to the wrong day. And you can do other cute things with the emojis. So if you actually just want this to say, you know, yoga person, and just pop up as a little like, do some breathing, do some stretching. It doesn't need to have a title at all. The ADHD tip on this one is to add a playful title. So call it a dance party or stretch and breathe. End of day wrap up. That is kind of like the start of day triage, but in this part, you are looking at what's come in through the day and also what you actually achieved versus what you didn't achieve. We're always very ambitious with our time, or time optimistic. And this is about looking at what actually came up through the day, what do we need to adjust for tomorrow, and any updates on existing tasks. Maybe you got partway through but not the full way through. Maybe there's communication you need to do with other people. I would put this at 5:15 till 5:30. And again, rather than every weekday, I want it to come through every day except Wednesday. And so you're kind of anchoring your day with this start and end, or bookending it with setup and wrap up. And then the best part is when you get to mark completed tasks as done in your task system, a very important step because you get a little dopamine hit when you do it. Weekly is a good cadence for reflecting, but maybe if you don't have time for that, it could be monthly or it could be quarterly. It's about looking at what worked and what didn't about the way you used your time and the work that happened. And then you can use that information to adjust the following week. And you can either do this as a journaling exercise or just a little walk around the block and a check-in with yourself. Maybe you have a partner or a business partner you can chat it through with. I like to have mine as the very last thing of the week. And if we're reflecting, we're gonna need a mirror. And allow enough time for it. Let's call this an hour-long process. The very basic version of that is what went well, what didn't, what am I going to do differently, and what are my wins. And if you've got a hype folder that you save any, you know, positive feedback that you might have received, it's a good time to collect that stuff up and have a look at it if there was anything positive that came through from that week that you want to take a moment to appreciate. Syncing calendars. If you do juggle multiple calendars, you might want to have them all show up. I'm not using it in this particular account, but if you do have multiple calendars that you're subscribed to, you can tick them in this sidebar and they'll pop up next to the calendar that you're looking at. This can be really handy if you're trying to see your personal calendars against your work calendars. There's apps as well, like Fantastical, or you can do it in Notion, to see a kind of integrated view, which might be handy if that's relevant to you. And then a little bonus tip is incorporating visual or auditory cues. So if you want to use the phone emoji for calls, then that would be one. Maybe this one isn't a meeting at all, it's a call. You might put the emoji at the start and then have others that aren't calls that are meetings in person that would maybe have the person icon or something like that. I love an emoji. So wrapping it up, the calendar is meant to be your friend. It's the way that you organize your time and get the most out of your time, because it's your time. And once it's gone, it's gone. So the strategies that I suggest are having a start of day task triage, using time blocking, color coding your calendar, planning in the buffer time, planning some untouchable or deep focus time, Don't overbook yourself. Schedule your breaks as though they're important appointments. Have an end of day wrap up time so you can see what happened and plan what's next. Reflect and reset weekly. Sync multiple calendars if that's relevant to you, and incorporate visual or auditory cues. And if you're a bit neurospicy, there are some bonus tips here around how to use sort of playful titles, automatic reminders, color coding, and shorter time blocks just to help your brain along. If you've got another tip that I didn't cover here, I'd love to know about it. And hopefully there was something useful in here that you haven't heard or seen before. Let me know what you think. And if you like tips like these, subscribe for more, and I will try and keep them coming.